Friday the 13th, Part 2, came out in 1981, the same year as the original Halloween 2. Now, I must say, apologies for the lateness of this review. I know I did the first Friday the 13th 1 year ago, so I'm really sorry. I just had a lot on my list and a lot I really had to get through. And yeah, so this is the start of consistent Friday the 13th movie reviews. So 3 will be coming out next week, and then 4, 5, and the whole franchise. So don't worry, you won't have to wait another year for it, I promise. So yeah, I just wanted to get that out there. So with the huge success of Friday the 13th Part 1, of course they had to have a sequel. Now, what's fascinating about this sequel is where could they have gone? In the original, they beheaded Mrs. Voorhees. Where was there left to go? And according to her, Jason had drowned and was dead. So, and alas, people, is my first pet peeve with this plot. First of all, this movie takes on 5 years after the events of the original Friday the 13th. So, Jason, if not drowned, would have been a kid. In this, he's a grown-ass man. And according to legend, he watched his mother get beheaded. Why didn't he come out and say, "Hey, Mom, hey, don't kill her. I'm right here."
Ma, the meatloaf! Fuck!
It makes no sense. I mean, all he had to do was come out, show himself to his mother, and all of the kills in Part 1 would never have happened. So what was the purpose? Because he didn't hate his mom, he didn't want her to get decapitated, because the whole point of his killing spree now is to avenge his mother. Make sense of it, because I fucking can't. Oh. Anyway, I had to get that out of the way. We'll start on with some positives, some good things. So, it starts off with Alice having nightmares, and the nightmares are of all of the past events from pretty much the end of the first movie. Meeting Mrs. Voorhees, etc., and leading up to her demise. And then you see a pair of legs in the street. You see a kid dancing itsy bitsy spider, some shit. And then the mum calls the kid in, and then suddenly you see the two grown ass legs walking. And fun fact, that was the first and only time Jason has only ever been played by a female. That's right. Those are woman's legs in Jason's outfit. The only time. So, yeah, little early fun fact. So, to put it quickly, Alice's character gets really quickly killed off by Jason, which is a damn shame considering she survived all of the first movie just to get killed off in this movie. And it's fascinating when you look at the backstory, because the actress who signed on to do this movie had no idea she was being killed off. She wasn't sent any script. She was not shown any script. Whenever she got into the car to drive up to the set to do her shoot, the whole place was empty because the movie had already been finished filming at that point. So they had to film her death scene. So she was pretty pissed off, I can imagine. And also, after this movie, she pretty much retired from acting because she was getting stalkers going up to her house and everything. And so she stopped acting until 2010, I believe. So that's fascinating, and it's certainly not cool. Like, actors, they're just doing their job. They don't need to be stalked or harassed in any form. So, you know, there's always one that ruins the party. So, Alice is basically killed off 2 months after the end of the first movie. So, after that, we fast forward to 5 years since the end of the last movie. And they basically open the camp again. There's whole fresh new, camp, crystal, fresh meat. So the characters introduced are kind of memorable and kind of not. I mean, uh, they are cool, but I will say the final girl in this movie is probably one of the best in the whole franchise. Like, she's badass, smart, and which I'll talk about near the end of the movie as to why she's like smart, but she's cool. Most of the cast are cool, and what I do like is I like the comedy. Some of the comedy in this movie, which I think falls a bit better than the original. Like, for example, there was a scene that did get a chuckle out of me, which was the guy, one of the campers, he's there and he's like making hot dogs. And he stands there like with the hat and everything, the hot dog and everything, like, come and get him. And the guy's like, just like a stretch away, like you can touch him. And he's standing right beside him, like, I'm right here. It's stupid, but sometimes simple comedy is the funniest. But yeah, so little lines like that. And funny things like there's a guy in a wheelchair who I think his kill scene is probably one of the best in this entire franchise. But that's only my opinion. There's a lot. I mean, like, how it's hard to top the sleeping bag kill or the kill from Jason X, which is iconic. But for me, this one always stuck out to me. It was always one I always looked back on. And if I thought about like Friday the 13th in general, that's the scene that comes to mind. And which is so cool. But apart from that, most of the kills in this movie are pretty mediocre. There's nothing apart from that stands out to me. Like, you're getting people like hung upside down by the feet, and they're getting their throats like cut with the other side of a machete. I mean, I know it's probably just a goof, but it was pretty noticeable. And thankfully, no snakes were harmed in the making of this movie. How about that? Pretty much like the first and original movie, we only see the legs, and the feet of the antagonist, and just them stalking in the woods and their hand moving a leaf. It's pretty much very similar. So I can only imagine whenever people first watched this in the theaters, what they were thinking, like, who is it? There's no way it's Mrs. Voorhees. No, it couldn't be because her head was in the fridge in the beginning when Alice opened it, and then somebody else came, so it's definitely not her. So who would it be? And apart from the timeline that makes no sense, it could only really be one person, unless it was Crazy Ralph, and that would have been actually an even better twist. And it would have made a lot more sense than this. You can't tell me it wouldn't. It's true. Then Jason could have came in third movie when 10 years have passed. Then it would maybe make a bit more sense. Or it would make more sense to resurrect Jason from the water. Say they find his body and they resurrect him like part 6 and he comes out immediately as a zombie. Then it would have made sense because he would have been dead when his mum got decapitated, so it would have made more sense, but whatever. It is what it is. you know. Oh god, I don't know why Clearly wasn't thought through. Clearly, when they were thinking about the plot, all they thought of was money. Hence why you you would have logically came up with something a bit better. I already did. Crazy Ralph. There. That's it. It took me a second and a half to come up with that. But it made a lot more sense. Maybe plot twist. He was Jason's dad. See? There again. Adding to it. It's so simple when there's no money sitting in front of you. But anyway. So all the kills are mediocre. But you get other funny scenes like the girl who's trying so hard, a little too hard, to try and get with Mark. That's the guy in the wheelchair. Who's a cool character. I like him. He's awesome. He's just laid back, and I like him. And she's trying to flirt with him. She's trying to get with him and all that. And he's playing so cool. And now this is where my mind played tricks on me, right? Because whenever it came to the part, whenever she, really lent in, like kissing, whatever, in my head, I thought I could have sworn he rejected her. I said, "Look, I'm not interested. Sorry," and I was whenever they kissed, I was like, "Oh, hey, didn't wait." But and then I realized it was actually I got it mixed up with the Friday the 13th Part 2 documentary, where in real life the actress was trying to get with that actor because she, had a thing for him, and he rejected her in real life. That's what I got confused with. So I thought that was just a little funny fact I thought I would share just while I'm going over this. But that was interesting. And you have Paul. I like the scene where Paul's, they're all sitting around the campfire, and Paul decides to tell him the legend of Jason, and he watched his mom get decapitated, and that's where you're basically told where we are now. So what's going on? That's where you're like, huh? 5 years? But I've already gone over that. I'm not going to spend too much long bitching about the timeline. I've said my piece, but it was a cool speech. He did a good job. The actor did a wonderful job. It wasn't anywhere near as impactful as the Indianapolis speech from Jaws, but it was still pretty cool. And of course, a scene which I really did think was fascinating also was whenever they're in the bar and Jenny actually sympathizes with Jason. And I thought, that's fascinating. Like, she sympathizes, like, what if he did see his mom get decapitated? Like, and he did drown, and what would he be feeling? I'm genuinely sympathizing with him, and I thought that was interesting. Really, like, it's not often you see in a horror movie, like, or a slasher primarily, where you get that type of sympathy for a character that is an antagonist. So that was fascinating, and I actually did like it. I thought it was really cool. It was different. It was fresh. For a movie from 1981, it was fresh. But I thought it was really cool. I liked that. It was fascinating, and that actually played into the last part in the final act. And of course, you have one thing I will say. I hate that he killed off Crazy Ralph in this movie. I think we could have had a lot longer with him. The character was so fascinating. I would have loved to have known his backstory, like known a bit more about him. But I get it. They have to raise the stakes. He was in the first movie, so I had to do something with him. I get it, but it would have been cool. He was an interesting character. You're all doomed. He was awesome. I liked him. But of course, then, so Mark, the kill I was talking about earlier, my favorite one, is basically he's a guy in a wheelchair, and you see like the camera panning behind him, and then suddenly you get the machete that hits him there. And what's fascinating now, and I remember seeing this as a kid, and it stuck with me, and it's always been memorable, is Mark in a wheelchair, like this axe, clearly, obviously already deceased, and he's just falling backwards down these big, long concrete steps in the rain. and it's night. Of course, it's nighttime, and there's like thunderstorm and everything, and he's just falling down. Stuck with me so much, but it was so cool. It also reminded me of Franklin from the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So it was kind of on par with that. But Mark didn't deserve it. Just saying. But you get to the final act, they find all the bodies, and it's all making sense. And then Jason's finally revealed from the bed. He pulls the sheets and gets up, and that's your first look at him. And fun fact, the design of Jason in this movie is actually pretty much copy and pasted from a movie called The Town That Dreaded Sundown. As you can see, the only difference is the killer from that movie has 2 eye holes. Jason only has 1. So that's interesting. Very original. And you get the whole climax, and Paul jumps in to wrestle him, and Jenny's just like standing there like, Paul? 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 How about you grab something and fucking help the guy? How's that? That's not the first time. There's another girl in this that gets slayed, and Jason's going towards her very fucking slowly with a fucking butcher knife like that. You see the camera panning here and it's going towards her, and she's just standing there like going and she does that for like a solid fucking 40 seconds, when she could have ran out the fucking door. So again, pet peeve. It's classic 80s slasher. Classic. So you get the reveal after Jenny runs, and she finds a hut, and she runs into the hut, and it's the same hut that a cop chased Jason in earlier. And there was a cool scene where the cop was in the car, and you just see like only a glimpse of Jason running past the road, and the guy runs out after. And that was a cool scene. He gets hammered, no pun intended. So she opens the door, and a really cool scene that actually did creep me out, I will say, in this movie, even as a kid. But there's a scene whenever she walks into the hut, and there's a window to her right. And if you look at the window, you just see Jason in the background running towards her, towards the hut. For me, that was terrifying. Because you imagine in real life, you're hiding somewhere, and you see this guy who wants to kill you, and he's just chasing you, and you see him through the window running towards you. That's terrifying. So that was genuinely a creepy scene. That was really awesome. I love that. So she gets into the hut, opens the door, and she finds Mrs. Voorhees' head, as like a big, like a shrine. And what's awesome, and this is the part where I said earlier, it fits in earlier, where she sympathizes with Jason and the psychology of Jason, and her intellectual first instinct is put Mrs. Voorhees' jumper on, pretend to be her, and hope he doesn't just kill my ass. So she does that, and he falls for it. She's talking like, Jason, this is mother. And he falls for it, and because he doesn't see Jenny, he sees, his mother. Which is awesome that he got Betsy Palmer back for that one little scene, and which was awesome. Even though she came back confused, like, how is he alive? But you can read up. There's plenty of articles about it. But so she's trying to, convince him. Your job's done. Mother is proud, and kneel down. And he does it, and she goes to grab the weapon, and just behind her, he sees the severed head. And he's like, and then they have a scuffle, and Paul suddenly comes through the door after getting knocked out. I don't know how he knew they were there, but hey, fuck. Good instincts of Paul to know she was in a hut randomly in the middle of nowhere. Good on you, Paul. So they scuffle, they fight. Eventually it ends with Jenny, just stabbing the machete through Jason's shoulder, and that's his death. So they get out of the hut, all happily ever after. They get back, and they get back into a cabin. You have one last little scare at the door. Does Jason know that you open the door? It's like a little puppy. and fun fact. Did you know that originally Jason was not going to be his actual first name? No. Originally Jason's name was going to be Josh. But the screenwriter didn't think it was scary or intimidating, so he rewrote it and came up with Jason. So yeah. I'd say it was a good call. Josh Voorhees? Come on. So yeah. All happily ever after. They have a puppy there, Puppin, I think the dog's name was something like that. And then suddenly Jason smashes through the window and was mask off and he's all deformed and he's got hair and he's all red-necked up. And then she wakes up and here's a dream sequence, just like the original movie. Okay. Of course you had to put that in. Sure, why not? Because if it's in the first movie, it has to be in this one, right? So, yeah. Overall, it's a good movie. I enjoyed it. I swear whenever I watched it, it felt shorter than I remember. But I had a great time. It's fun. The dialogue's fun. Like I said, there's some funny lines in it that actually fit. Kills are mediocre. Apart from that one kill I've talked about, which is fucking awesome. It's worth watching the movie just for that scene alone. Awesome stuff. And what I recommend it, yeah, of course. It's historical. It's Jason Voorhees' first official outing as the antagonist. So yeah, I mean it's a big deal for the franchise, As much as I still think Mrs. Voorhees is scarier than Jason, I have a video up there for it. I still stand by that today. I still find her scarier. But that's only my opinion. That's just what I think. So, yeah, check this movie out. It's awesome. And, yeah, if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I wholeheartedly appreciate it, and I appreciate all of you. And as always, please don't kill anyone.